This week on the show, we're featuring an interview with Christian Bladt. How to shape amethyst. 19 jokes. An update on Tup That Chocolate Opal. Pickles on Why'd I Buy That? Pickles? No, it's supposed to be sliced cheese. Why did I have pickles in my note? And awesome amounts of amazingness. And if you have an innie, can you still drive an Audi? Let's start the show. Hello. Welcome to the show. Today we're featuring a piece of amethyst which I shaved up for Mr. Greenbody. This is an interesting piece of amethyst. It's a soft purple, but it's got purple. It's definitely a purpley purple. We'll show more of that on the microscope portion. It gave me guff. I thought I'd just kind of whip it out, but it did not want to straighten up. And we're going to see that on the video. So I wound up putting it on the faceter. And that straightened it up nicely. Actually, what was really interesting to me is once I got it on the faceter, the thickness wasn't even, and that really threw it off. Like, really threw it off. And since I don't... Okay, so here's where I am with the faceter and 90-degree angles. Like, to take the gem and do, you know, I got the faceter attached here, and I'm doing this part here. To do that, I need the 90-degree adapter, or the 45-degree adapter. It's a 90-degree tabletop. I have one. I got one. My dops are too big for it. I need to get actual dops instead of the ones I made. So I can't, right now I can't technically cut a 90-degree table. So what I did is I cut like 12 degrees in 4 sides, and that made the middle of it. It evened it out. I mean, you know, and actually I really like how it turned out. I think it turned out really nice because it has sort of an elegance to the middle. See, I see this line around the outside. That's what I was originally going for. That's what you're seeing me do with the hand grinder. But then it has this other, that flickery part there. Yeah, those 4 quadrants, those came out of me not being able to do the table. So actually it's kind of a blessing in disguise at the moment. How's it going, Jerry? I'm going to play a game of chess. I'm going to talk about sliced cheese on this week's Why'd I Buy That? I'm going to play an interview. I'm going to do a little bit different style show today. I'm going to play the interview short version. I didn't actually have time to check that out. Yeah, I was cranking out the end of that, exporting all the interview portions. What do they call it? Rendering. I was rendering the short portion of the interview like 3 minutes before I had to go live. And we're going to air the short version. Let's see, we've got Stone of the Week. We've got Christine's Chocolate Opal. Really cool update coming on that under the microscope cam. We're also going to look at the Stone of the Week under the microscope cam. Then we're going to get into Why'd I Buy That? I'm going to do the short interview. We're going to do the joke portion. I'm going to play the game of chess. And then we're going to play the extended cut of the interview, which is an hour long. And I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be in the chats with you guys for the hour of the interview. See, this piece is really kind of shaping up. This amethyst turns out it's a nice solid piece, and it's a pretty even piece too. It's not like part of it's alpha quartz, part of it's beta quartz. It's all pretty much hard beta. It's really thick stuff, and it's dense, which makes me, I'm cutting it with a dull 60 grit right now. And then I get down to, I go from there to a 240, and then I go from the 240 to a 1000, and then I get upset, so I glue it on a dop, and then on while it's on the dop, I do another 1000. Actually, I might have done a little 240 to straighten it up. Then I did the 1000. How's it going, Colette S? Colette S is amazing too. I'm not amazing because I didn't fire up the chat bot yet. How's it going to drop Christian Bladt's link if I don't fire up the chat bot? There we go. We have chat bot Rooney. I think. Should be working. Cheers. Hey, Honest Gas Handmade has a yo-yo, and he knows how to use it in the chats. I love yo-yos. I always wanted to be one of those people who could like, but I never understood it. It's like, what are you tying a knot or something? Or, you know, you just trying to... And then I've heard also that you have to have kind of an expensive yo-yo to do the really cool tricks. And I always was like dealing with one of those, you know, got it for free as a prize for getting almost the middle of the thing at the carnival. Because nobody can actually get the middle of the thing in the carnival. They always have some kind of oil, or there's some kind of a... That's what Joan Rotten should do, is an exposure on carnival tricks. Because they modify with, you know, nowadays you could just go on YouTube and you can find all the secrets to them carnival tricks. And they're, you know, it's interesting. Because, like I remember seeing where it was like the bucket, you had to get it up. You had to throw up and down with a backspin to get it to stick in the bucket. And then, like, there was other ones where they had special balls behind the thing, and they would take them out to use them. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, not all carnivals are a scam, but some of them are, so you got to be careful with that. Oh wow, hey, Perth Observer made it. Hey, hey, hey. Heath's new channel, hey. Okay, great, he's got a new channel. Okay, I was wondering about that. He's, yeah, because I haven't seen him live on his other channel in a long time. I'm fighting headaches. So are you, Jacob. So are you, Jacob? Are you, Jacob? Are you... So are you... Christian is amazing. Oh, Christian is amazing. So, hey, Sammy, we got to get you up here for an interview, man. I'm trying to get this interview thing going. It's a learning process. You're actually, with the interview, and this goes for both halves, you're going to see me screw up a lot. You're going to see me have a complete lack of lucidity. And you're going to see Christian not only put up with it, but actually try to save it. For interview's sake. He's really good at this kind of stuff, and he does a lot of things on his channel. And I thought, you know, this would be a great interview. And I was able to edit it into a somewhat reasonably entertaining interview. I think I'd like to get some better editing software where I could get down to little seconds of snippets and kind of fold it in there. Sure you can, and yet news anchors repeatedly fall for them. Oh, it's weird. Very weird. Oh, I love Lowe's. Let's totally do it. I love that idea, Joan. That is a great idea. Yes, let me know and we will totally do it. Colette S., you're fighting headaches. What do we got to get you to fight them headaches with? You know what we got to get you is some salsa. Actually, Christian was talking about salsa. It came up during the interview, and then I said something about salsa, and so he's going to give us a salsa review. That's going to be really cool. You know, if somebody's a fan of salsa, fan enough to bring it up, then they're going to be interested in trying the salsa. You know, a lot of people like salsa. I love how this gem was turning out, and it just did not want to even up. See the back there? It did not want to even up, and I think part of that was because I didn't have it even like this, and it wasn't satisfactory enough. For those who don't know, this is a sponsorship gem for Mr. Greenbody. Sending it to Mr. Greenbody because he's good grower and good friend of the show. And I wanted to send him something cool. He doesn't even know. He just thinks he's getting some plant food. I wanted to get, you know, he's getting going again. So I wanted to get him going, but And I'm going to send him some stickers this time. But the thing is, I wanted to send him a cool gem, so I was like, okay, this is a neat little piece of amethyst. We can whip it out. Wound up having to glue it on the top, which means I got to let it dry for a day, and then I got to glue it on the other side and then let it dry for a day. And so it winds up becoming, instead of like a 45-minute thing that I'm going to throw in the box, it wound up becoming like a 4 or 5 day thing before I can throw it in the box. And I decided to make it a feature, so after the show, or basically tomorrow, I'm going to try and get it in the mail to Mr. Greenbody. Check him out on Instagram. Got to drop his link. Which reminds me, the Whitfield Field report said I need to learn how to read and speak at the same time. And he also said he's happy to come on. That'd be awesome, Sammy. So let me know, is Twitter the best way to get a hold of you? We'll let the next video. I got 2 more videos to roll of this amethyst being shaped down. You can get the gist of what's going on with it. This is me trying to straighten it out with the 240. I can tell by that wrinkly sticker. That worn 240 has been, it's a great disc. It really does the job. I mean, it's worn down now, so it's lost its fresh sharpness, which actually kind of digs a little too deep. And it still cuts, but it doesn't cut crazy. It doesn't cut out of control, which is part of the problem with the next disc. When I go up to the 1000 grit, it's too new, it's too sharp, and it cuts a little out of control and a little too deep. I wind up getting frustrated, and that's when I go to the faceter. So, oh, Christina and Sungo Squad made it. Oh, that's fantastic, because I actually shaped the chocolate opal for this week. I did a little bit of work with this chocolate opal, with this space one. It has all the little blue down in there. In here, and I wound up finding something so cool that I had to stop and make sure we looked at it on the microscope. And I haven't got it to look at it on the microscope yet. It's got like this reflection up along this ridge, and it's making me wonder if there's like a layer of some opalescence. There's reds, there's greens. It's like a sandwich layer. It's really, really cool. Phone, BRB. Oh, I'm so glad you made it, Perth. I'll see you when you get back. Hiya, Coletta, says Jerry. Hi, everybody, says Colette, which I think Colette thinks that Jerry's name is everybody. So, I think they're talking to each other. Yes, DM me on Twitter. Isn't that one of the newer words of the newer age? DM, or PM, or AM, SM, SNM, SNL. That's what we're talking about on the Christian Bladt interview. Which reminds me, we should probably, I stopped talking about Amethyst a few minutes ago. We should probably get into the microscope portion of the program. And then I can show you all of these great things under the microscope. While Christine is here, she can see her chocolate opal being made as it's being made. I need to change that tup that ruby to tup that opal. Shows you how much time I have during the week. Let's open up the desktop. Desktop, baby, yeah. That was just awful. All right, moving along, singing our song, and then not singing it anymore. Let's see if I can show this magic area. Ooh, you can see it. Okay, so we have, it's backwards, isn't it? It's always backwards. I always do this backwards. There we go, over this way. There we go. Now I'm doing it not backwards. Haha, who uses converted controls anyway? Okay. Let's bring it into focus a little bit. Alright, so you can see the growth of the matrix into the actual opal crystal. And there's little blue flickers that are showing up. And those are the stars in the opalescence that we're trying to harvest out for Christina. But there's something else I noticed in the stone. It's that. Look at that fire. See how bright that is? Notice how it kind of turns greenish. A little bit there. Green and yellow. It's all in this layer along this top side here. See those little flickers of light and little bits of color? That's the opalescence that people are searching for on the internet. That's what's real popular right now. Ooh, there. Look at all that fire. So apparently if I grind down into this, and I was grinding on it with that 60 grit, I want to change over to a 240 and go a little slower. Maybe even 1,000 to kind of polish it out. Because after the 1,000 grit, I can start to see down into it. And I want to get down into this chocolate here a little bit. Because that's what this is here. Is unpolished chocolate. Right, from here over to here. And then that's when we can separate out for all those blues. Which that's the update on that chocolate opal. Let's take a look at this amethyst, shall we? Mr. Greenbody's amethyst. You can see my low quality of polish. But at least you can kind of get a feel for the size of it. And the facet work. I got the quadrants on the back pretty even, considering. I didn't get those back tilts in the middle very even. But I was actually trying to whip those out. I should have... they were in between the notch. And so I was trying to do it, and it kept turning a little on me. I should have taken the time to adjust it. I really like how elegant it looks, though. It looks like a regal English gem, right? See those gnarly scratches? That's what my polish lab's doing. How's that supposed to be a polish lab? I gotta get an actual polish lab. And then those little divots. But look at the purple on it, right? It's got good purple. I mean, it's definitely purple. I think Mr. Greenbody will appreciate having that in his sponsorship gem box. Just to give you an idea of how big it is. That's about how big it is. Good ring gem, you know, big old cocktail gem, especially considering how flat it is. And it still has light from so many angles. I like it. Okay, so that makes the microscope portion of the program complete. Let's get into why did I buy that. Cheers, YouTube land. And all these great chatters. Gives it personality. Thank you. I like that. Thank you for the comment, Honest, about the opal. And Christina's here to talk about the opal, which is awesome. Yummy chocolate. Oh, yeah, Christina. Actually, I did take a picture of chocolate. We're going to get into why did I buy that chocolate. Okay, so we got a request from Joan to do pimento cheese. And that's what I'm going to talk about. But next week, we're going to do pickles, which is why I have that note. And then we're going to do potato chips. And then we're going to, we should do chocolate. Sounds great. And that's, you know, I think that the why I buy that is going to be something I like to do every week. Because it's going to be easy to just snap a picture while I'm picking stuff up. Throw it up here, chop it out of the show, and make it a little clip, right? Now I just need to get good at the why I buy that portion. So, oh, that reminds me. If you're in the chats... Well, Colette, I already sent Mr. Greenbody a green gem. I sent him a peridot, and it's got a big crack in it, so I wanted to send him something that was, you know, really nice and big and flawless and that kind of stuff. Gotta run, family merge. Oh, no, Perth. Prayers, Perth, okay? Godspeed. It would make a great centerpiece on a light silver headdress. Oh, yeah. That's a good point, Honest. Let's see. We got Grand Illusion? I think this is it. Oh, maybe it's that. There it is. Okay, check out this interview with Christian Bladt and Dennis DeYoung of Styx. Yeah, it's a fun interview, so you can check out that one. That'll kind of give you an idea of what's coming up after the Wide Eye by that portion of the program. So, Joan had mentioned pimento cheese. I don't really, I, I'm not really looking for specific products because then the reason I bought it is because someone told me to buy it. And really then all I can get into is the the difference between the package and the brands and the price, which that's some wide eye by this. But for examples, I didn't really have pimento cheese. I don't eat pimento cheese. I don't know anything about pimento cheese. So what I did, oh, actually, you can enter both those, Grand Illusion or hashtag Blatt. There you go. I'll pop up the link. So I was thinking, well, all right, let's find out what pimento cheese is. That's why I put it down as sliced cheese. And it's perfect because the picture says sliced cheese right at the top. I started searching on the internet. Pimento cheese. Well, pimento cheese has pimentos in it. Pimentos are in olives. Pimentos aren't hot, right? Are they? I think pimento cheese is hot cheese. I don't know. So I searched on the internet. Come to find out, pimentos are considered a cool pepper. But they are a pepper with heat, which makes it hot cheese. And I'm not really into the hot cheese, but I thought, all right, I'll go look for some pimento cheese anyway. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the pimento cheese because I said I would. So I'm there. You can see where I was. No pimentos. No pimento cheese. They had pepper jack cheese. They didn't have any pepperback cheese. That was my mouth trying to make me trip over itself. They had pepper jack cheese, and they had it. This is from the block section over to the Lunchables. This is the sliced cheese area, and they got the American down at the bottom. They got they got the Great Value brand there. They got the Sargento brand. I like cheddar. I like sharp cheddar. I like the flavor in the sharp cheddar. And that's what I wanted to get. I like to take a pepperoni pizza, Tombstone, right? And while it's frozen, break up the cheese pieces and set them around on there. Put it in the oven, and it comes out perfect. Doesn't work with sprinkled cheese. It's not the same. Something about the size of it and the fact that it's not frozen and it's got the cornstarch on there. It just gets crunchy and brown. No, it's got to be the sliced cheese and quartered up. And I've noticed there is a difference in flavor between the brand name and the Sargento. The Sargento has a cheesier cheese. It's more of the sharpier sharp. It's a sharper cheddar. It's a cheddarier cheddar. So I go with the Sargento. And I don't go with a really big pack because I won't eat that much myself before it's gone. So I get the smaller package. But I do that, and that's because I eat it. Whoa! And I was thinking that we could do another one, a separate one. I said sliced cheese, but we could do a second sliced cheese for the American sliced cheese because I actually do like to put American cheese on burgers, French fries, other things that I can't think of at the moment. Oh, fish sandwiches. Yeah, homemade filet of fish sandwiches. Really, like all you there. It's because once you get the fish and the bun and the cheese, all you gotta get is the tartar sauce, right? And that's I make that ahead of time. It's worth it. Make a whole jar. Delicious. We'll talk about it next time on Why'd I Buy That. So right now, I'm going to do an interview portion because all of you are great and I want to get caught up on the chats here. I am going to switch over to the interview and then I'm going to kind of let it roll for the 9 minutes that it exists. Then we'll come back for the joke session and chess. And then the extended portion of the interview. Cheers.
Hey, how's it going? Oh, I do not hear you though.
There. Okay. Can you
There
hear
you
me?
are.
Okay, great. Christian Bladt is a real person in reality, and he's going to tell us about all the cool things he does. But first, we want to get to know him a little bit. Christian, what is your lottery pizza?
So the way I understand the question is, if I won the lottery, what pizza would I buy? So if I'm winning the lottery, that tells me that I can buy pizza from anywhere in the world.
Hmm.
So I would definitely get a pizza that, I'm going to be honest, I don't remember the name of the place, but I went with my wife in 2007 to Florence in Italy, and she had studied abroad there. So there was this place that we had to take a bus and then walk a couple miles, it seemed like. And it was amazing. It's one of the best meals I ever had in my life. So if I could tell you the name, I would. But the pizza place in Florence, Italy, that is the pizza that I would buy. And I would probably buy a place closer to it and then have it a few times a week.
Would you like to elaborate on all of the things that you do on the Blattertainment Network?
Well, the Blattertainment Network is a nice way to sort of condense the Bladtcast Entertainment Group, LLC, that has been going on for a while. The Bladtcast podcast started in 2013, so we've been doing it for more than 8 years. We're at 424 episodes as of later this week. We'll be doing one live, and so that's a lot. I mean, it's not Mark Maron, but we usually averaged about one a week. Every once in a while, we'd do less, we'd do more. And that grew out of producing Dennis Miller's radio show. Regular on it are people that I met through producing that show. It just seemed like a fun thing to do, to kind of hang around afterwards. Yeah, that was how they sold the show. We did it live for most of the run of the show. We did it from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, but they sold it as more of an entertainment show, so you could play it later in the day. So in terms of live, we had a great clearance in Chicago. We'd get a lot of live calls from Chicago, and then some other cities later in the day. But yeah, so I worked on that show the entire time it was on. I produced it for almost the whole time,
Hmm.
and I was the
That's why it was so
sidekicks.
great.
Well, that's what I say. I was the sidekick slash co-host for the last like almost 5 years, and it was a lot of fun. We did it for Westwood One, and I think at the peak we were on about 305 stations, and when it launched, it was on 50 stations. So it definitely grew.
Oh, yeah.
But just radio changed a lot. That company changed a few times while we were there, and a lot of times the economics behind the scenes are why things go away anywhere in entertainment. And just working with the guys, we would have so much fun, and just kind of talking after the show. And I would listen to, they would do on Sirius XM, or just then it was just Sirius. They had for on the Howard Stern channels, they had what they called the after show, which I think they still do. The wrap up show is actually what it's called. And it would just be people talking about doing that show. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I can do a show, but I can definitely do a show where I talk about a show. And that premise that this was the show where we would talk about the Dennis Miller show after we were done lasted about one episode, and then we just kind of talked about whatever we wanted to. It would come up sometimes, like, oh, we had this really cool guest today, this thing happened, this is funny. And people who listened to it, it was put live, not live, it was the podcast episodes were put on the Dennis Miller radio site. So that's really how most people found it the first few years, really. And the first 100, I think it's like the first 119 episodes, like that's really how people found it. It was available the way podcasts were, but that's really how it started. And then when the show ended, we were able to keep in touch, and through using other radio studios, we were able to still do the show. We'd occasionally record it at people's houses. And so we were able to keep in touch as friends. We were able to keep doing the show, and I'm probably closer to those guys because we do a podcast together, and we have for so long. Because I haven't worked with them in really about 6 years now. So the fact that we still do the podcast this much later, but I try to not impose on their time. I try to not make them do it every week. So that's why I'll do a lot of the interviews like you talked about. Some of the musician interviews, authors, comic book creators, just other friends. I'll try to mix it up so that I'm not asking them every week to give me 2 hours of their time. I was going to say before is I think a lot of people are really just full of shit. And I think that you have people who are like, look, you have to be able to laugh at the Ted Cruz thing. You have to be able to laugh at Nancy Pelosi, getting her hair cut when no one's allowed to get a haircut in the entire Bay Area where she's. What I thought was kind of a dumb joke. The day that the Mars rover landed was the day after this Ted Cruz thing broke. So I wrote that I thought that the most surprising thing from the Mars rover footage was when it looked around and realized that it didn't want to be on Mars. So it took its family to Cancun for the weekend. Some people thought that was funny, and other people immediately are like, oh, but people that I really like, by the way, wrote back and were like, oh, but what about when the Mars rover sent all the people with COVID into nursing homes? I'm like, that's true too. That definitely happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you gotta give me your take on that. That's funny. I'm gonna laugh at it, but I'm like, that's not what I'm making a joke about.
That's
It's
not
like
bit
this can
surfing.
be fun. Two things can be funny at the same time. Two things can be true at the same time. And it's like you can't make fun of this person because this person is also bad. And it's like, no, everybody, and it's very difficult. It's a very hard time to be trying to figure out what's funny for people. And doing a show with Dennis Miller has been around for 35 years more, really.
I think Dennis needs another special. He needs to come out with something called American Snark.
Another special would be great. I would love for him to do another special, and not just because I warmed up the crowd. The two shows, the last two specials that he did. The last one was in Knoxville, Tennessee. Now,
That's gotta be cool.
I did warm up, which is like for TV and getting people to know when to laugh and what to point at and cheer and all that stuff. What I didn't do is I didn't open for him because I'm not a comedian in terms of a performer. I didn't have bits. I had a couple ideas of stuff that I thought was kind of funny to talk about, but I was mostly there to kind of make them chuckle and be like, hey, all right, just make sure you laugh and do all this. And so I think that that's fun, and I would love for him to do another special. I think if he does one more, he ties George Carlin at either 10 or 11 specials. So I hope he does one more, but I don't think he feels like the politics of the world right now or the time that he wants to do it. But I'm not speaking for him. It's just my impression from things that he's said publicly before.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So there could be a time where he wants to do another special, but and I hope it happens, not just because look, if I don't get to warm up the crowd, I'll buy a ticket to it. I'd sit there in the audience because still one of the funniest people that I've ever seen perform. Somebody that understands how to deal with the crowd in terms of, and I'm not even talking about hecklers. It's just this crowd is a little different than a crowd in Las Vegas. Let me focus on this. Let me hit this joke a little harder. Let me, it's just understanding where it is. Well, their minerals are magic in their own way.
That's right. Yeah. So, it was great talking to you. I'd like to set up another time that we can chat and,
you let me know how your audience responds to this one, and then we'll go from there, and then we'll find time. As long as you feel like they want more, I'd be happy to find time to talk to you again before too long.
Awesome, great. Give me a week or two to get this on the show.
Yeah,
and then I'll get your package in the mail.
Sounds great. Well, thank you, Jacob. It was nice to get the chance to finally talk to you for real.
Likewise. See you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
So, that was our interview with Christian Bladt. The short version. The really short, poorly edited version where I'm not very lucid, apparently. And, yeah, that's the thing. Okay, Sam, here's my idea American Snark. Bull Snark in the water. I would appreciate an opinion from Dennis's perspective and vocabulary, because who doesn't love that? And I swear, there's people. I love a good funny word. I have actually been building out a list of funny words, and it's very short. I actually had a couple I was supposed to write, but here's the very, very short list: Fanny, Bing Bong, Walla Walla. That's the short list, but we're gonna write it out. I should probably add this because the word dunce. Dunce is a funny word. We're gonna add that right now. Dunce is the funny word. But there's a part in one of his specials where people write because he said something that sounds like dunce. He said unsolicited. Unsolicited. But people laugh halfway through the unce. The unsolicited. It's because it sounds like dunce. It's a funny word. And I like funny words. So back to my point, from his perspective, with his vocabulary and all of his funny words from the 90s forward. Take us through the pre-internet, through the internet. Give us some jokes and, do it in about 20 minutes. I think that would be great. Actually, I kind of was thinking, why am I asking someone else to do it? Why can't I do it? But then again, I can't write the same. I'll try. Which is what takes us to the next part of the program, which is not even close to being ready. I'm running this faceting video. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna show you guys how I line it all up. And I've got, want to say 19 jokes or so. We're gonna have the extended portion of the interview after the jokes and the chess portion. But I kind of wanted to give you some of this faceter video so you can see me, because a lot of the faceting video is boring. It's me and I'm grinding up the stone. But in this particular part, I'm actually moving the faceter. I'm adjusting it. I'm showing you how I line up the stone once it's on the top, and then I put it in the faceter. And from there, I love Dennis's arcane references. So, the Whitfield Report. Here is my joke about Dennis Miller. I was giving some people a tour of my home, and when they inquired, I replied, "Yes, the beer and the Dennis Miller." I think I told that wrong. Yeah, and when they inquired as to what they saw in the previous room, I replied, "Yes, the beer and the Dennis Miller." Because they wanted to know. They were thirsty. Alright, we got that train wreck out of the way. Out of the way, baby. And I'm going to try and get this train wreck underway, because it's time for this week's joke portion of the program. What do we got for you? What do we got? What do we got? This is not the joke portion. That's the joke portion. And the joke is on the portion. Okay, I have jokes for a portion. Okay, there are so many math jokes on here. It is not even cool. I should have organized them too. Organizing the show in the middle of the show. Why did the hot date tell the math teacher to calm down? She didn't like his attitude. Where do math teachers store things? The attic. None of these are about money either, which makes math jokes actually funny. Is it an addiction or is it a subtraction? I think it's the second one. If you have a bad attitude, isn't that a subtractitude? I agree with that. If you have a lizard butt, are you reptilian? I don't know. One of the benefits to all this time on Zoom is that the world's house cat population can finally voice their opinions. I've been live streaming so much that my mask is just a pop filter with ear straps. What did the cup say to the coffee? You're looking perky. That doesn't even make sense. If you, yeah, speaking of which, if you make hack pancakes, should you top them with cough syrup? Moving along. Because they wouldn't take me at Hogwarts, I had to go to the lesser known school, Pig Pimples. What did Jim Carrey say when he turned to prayer? Almighty then. Why do bad guys fear Batman? Because of his power. Sometimes I have to teach people a lesson, like Batman. So I pour them an icy glass of Lessonade. McDonald's is serving a vaccine burger. Adults can order it with a bottle of Corona. What do vegans eat for Lent? Do they have to eat meat on Friday? Do they have to eat meat on Fridays? Screwed that one up. The local bar is offering $5 draft therapy night. Caught my attention. What did the stoner say when someone asked if they want to smoke? Hookah it up. If you have an innie, can you still drive an Audi? Almost done, I promise. I've decided to become a bodybuilder and a swimmer, so I'm drinking Flex Seal. What do fishermen make money with? Net profit. And they also like it when I find a good way to round out the little joke portion of the program. Glad you all could put up with that for its abhorrency. Let's see, where is the show? Here is the show. Clicking on the chess part of the show. I got all of them, right? Yeah, probably. Close enough. Let's, alright, Amethyst, Opal, the cheese, not pickles. Interview the... Oh, yeah, that's right. Gonna talk about another interview I'm trying to get with the Tom Kelly show. Talked to Tom Kelly on the phone. Met him over on Christian Bladt's channel. Gonna try and get an interview with him. We talked about him on the show a little while ago. We're gonna try and get that planned out and then recorded, so that way I sound lucid during the interview. You're gonna see so many problems with the interview when I play the and I say extended cut because it is cut. It's not the whole thing. I had to cut out a lot of like empty space where I'm like, hello? Did I lose? Let's see. Jokes, chess. We got to do the chess portion where we talk about chess. Hey, Jeanette and Ron made it. How's it going? And how to garden stop by? Awesome. Man, this is great. We got fantastic people. All right. So let's get the video rolling of that faceting machine so you can see the rest of that. Bam, right in the middle. Because we were about right there. Yeah, looks good. Looks great. It's good enough for the show. Okay, now we'll open up chess.com and make sure it's highlighted. Okay, good. Now let's lose at a 1-minute game of chess. Every week. Except for some weeks. I actually win sometimes. It's rare. But I'm not feeling very confident this week. Or maybe I am. Right? And you gotta move a piece. I'm not the guy. Right? I'm waiting. Alright. Oh, he quit. Okay. I guess we did win. Huh. Alright. I suppose, we'll try another game. 1 minute game. Oh yeah, we did this last time. And then we go like this. And then we go like this. And then we go like this. Oh, I should. Dang. I screwed that one up. Oh, I should have been paying attention to that too. Okay, so that. And this one. That one. And that one. I'm running out of time, ain't I? That one. And stuck, ain't I? I'm stuck in the back. I need more pieces. Ah, so close. And next time, we would win. Let's take a look at the analysis, shall we? Let's let it load, and then the bar on the side will tell us when we were losing and when we were losing most. And when we really lost the game. Okay, so that's all textbook. And that got us there, but then I apparently lost when I didn't take the queen. Should have done the queen for queen. Gained potential, lost potential. And I gained potential, then I lost potential. Apparently. Because I ran out of time. That's why I ran out of time. Okay, so he had a worse position, but I ran out of time. Okay, yeah, his king was kind of trapped there, and I had both my bishops, and his pieces were tucked away. Anyway, that's why we analysize so that we can learn and we get better. And next season, you're actually going to see me win more games, probably, hopefully, I wish. But right now, we're going to switch back to the interview portion, and I'm going to play the extended cut of the interview. And I'm going to wish you all a great and fantastic week. I hope that I can inspire you to make it a great week. Because you have the ability with your own abilities. You can make this a great week. But with a little bit of inspiration and maybe some encouragement, put some sprinkles on top. And I'm gonna, I'm gonna play this interview, and hopefully I will see you next week and every week at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Hey, how's it going? Oh, I do not hear you though.
There. Okay. Can you
There
hear
you
me?
are.
Okay, great. A little bit to get used to here with Zoom. Do you use Zoom much?
Yeah, I use it. I use it a lot because it gives you something extra to post. So I'll post the videos. I use a program called StreamYard a lot because that's the one that I use where you can bring up the comments from YouTube like on the screen. It's kind of the best thing about it is its interface, but you can stream in multiple places. So it goes out on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch all at the same time when I do that. So
Okay.
That's a good advantage to that one. But you can actually go live on Zoom. You can do it on Facebook, or I think you can definitely do it on YouTube. Well, it just puts a little Zoom logo in the corner. But other than that, it's not too bad.
Well, I kind of had a crash course with Zoom, I guess. I thought it'd be easier than saying, "Oh, let's try Google Hangouts." That's what I'm used to using.
Okay.
Um, Actually, I was gonna try and okay, there we go. Now we got the view correct. I'm not very familiar with doing interviews. It's nice to meet
Okay.
you, by the way.
Nice to meet you for real. Yeah.
Let's see. I was thinking that we could have like a portion of my show that's an interview thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought I mentioned I had the chat bot will drop some links and I'll pin a link and try
Yeah.
to get some kind of a rollover out of it. I think it's a good idea to pin your YouTube link at the top of the chats because that's probably going to get you the most number.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Yeah,
And
that's kind of what I'm pushing now is the YouTube link. So yeah.
the YouTube. Okay, cool. I like the Marvel movie news, and I watched a lot of Marvel stuff. I used to watch the X-Men cartoon, used to watch Spider-Man as a kid. I actually have a couple of comic books. I like when you talk about the comic books. It's kind of like Cliff Notes. That's what I think of it as. I don't have the time to consume all that, so that's why I appreciate you doing it. So from my perspective, emphasizing the Cliff Notes part would be cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Not necessarily that you have to hallmark it, because I thought that was...
I mean, I think it's worth referencing sometimes because when I'm talking about comics, it's from a very specific standpoint. I mean, it's like I read comics a lot from like 1983 to 1992 and a little bit beyond that, much less, but I still read them up until about 2000. And so I know a lot from like an era from like before I started reading right up until about 2000. And then I know very, very little, so.
Just from keeping up. Well, with media changing and all that, it's like,
yeah.
I mean, that was really the way to get your comics back then. It's kind of odd to think about how quickly media changes.
I'm finding that I'm finding that you're freezing a lot, and I don't know if that's because of my connection or because of yours.
It could be because of my connection. Everything seems fine here.
Okay. It also could be mine. Okay.
Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah, but I mean, it could be both. I do a lot of stuff down here. I mean, I just did some stuff yesterday, and it's usually okay. I do run into problems sometimes, so it could be me. But
you have good audio down there.
I mean, since I try. So if if something comes through garbled on your side, then we can just do it over. That's the beauty of recording,
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, the interview portion, I was gonna ask you, I was gonna introduce you, and here's me coming up with ideas in my mind and then actually trying to do them. So I was gonna introduce you and then ask you, what is your lottery pizza? Like, if you won the lottery, what pizza would you have? And then I was going to try and do a kind of a Chris Farley impression for those 3 questions.
Yeah, sure.
Do you remember the Chris Farley show?
Yeah, the Paul McCartney one's probably the best one. I mean, he did a bunch, but I think the Paul McCartney one, I think, was the first, and it's definitely the best one. Yeah.
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 And so then I thought, that way I could kind of just real quick, just lay out a whole bunch of because you do a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to kind of lay that out there, and then I could, we could just kind of chat, elaborate on that. And then that way, what I can do is I can take a YouTube editor, and then I can just chop out a section and save as new. And then I could have the lottery pizza be a clip, and then I could have the Chris Farley show thing. Not that we'll get a lot of views, but might as well try if you're interested.
No, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let me put on my interview face and see if I can get these questions set up. Thanks for doing this, by the way. Okay, let me think of my Chris Farley impression.
Yeah, no, happy to do it.
Okay, today on the show, we have a great comedian, producer, and CEO of the Blattertainment Network, Christian Bladt. He's the greatest. Oh man, I suck at this part. Always hate doing this part. It's all right. I can get through this. Okay. So, Christian,
Hi, Jacob.
remember when you were interviewing music industry greats like Dave Pirner of Soul Asylum and Don McLean, who wrote American Pie, and Dennis DeYoung of Styx? And he was like, "Welcome to the Grand Illusion."
Yeah, Mr. Roboto himself. Those were all very special interviews to get to do. I was very lucky to get to chat with each of them.
So you remember that?
I do. Yeah, I do. I definitely remember doing that. That was fun.
So cool, man.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Remember all the great hangouts with smart and funny people like Will and Jeff and Coltrane and Zia and Lindsay and that other guy whose name I can't remember?
Probably Liev. Yeah. I do remember. It's a lot of what makes up the family of the show I do, the Blackcast. So I remember it very fondly. It's very, very near and dear to my heart.
Awesome. That's so cool. You remember that. And okay, last question. You remember that time you're interviewing Emmy award-winning comedian Dennis Miller on the Blackcast, and you were like, remember when we were doing our radio show together and talking to Alan Zweibel, and we were like, remember when you were writing for SNL in the early days? You remember that?
I do remember that. I remember talking to Dennis Miller, which I was lucky to do a couple times a week for a few years there, and every day for a few years before that. I remember talking to Alan Zweibel. I remember talking to Alan Zweibel with Dennis. Alan Zweibel, one of the original SNL writers, he's a great guy. I remember all those things. And again, these are things that, these are all very happy memories. So I'm glad that there's nothing that I've repressed that you're bringing up.
That is so cool that you remember that. Okay, thanks for joining us on the Jacob Downey Does the Chris Farley Show impression with Christian Bladt.
Happy to be here.
Christian Bladt is a real person in reality, and he's going to tell us about all the cool things he does, but first we want to get to know him a little bit. Christian, what is your lottery pizza?
So the way I understand the question is, if I won the lottery, what pizza would I buy? So if I'm winning the lottery, that tells me that I can buy pizza from anywhere in the world. So I would definitely get a pizza that, I'm going to be honest, I don't remember the name of the place, but I went with my wife in 2007 to Florence in Italy, and she had studied abroad there. So there was this place that we had to take a bus and then walk a couple miles, it seemed like. And it was amazing. It's one of the best meals I ever had in my life. So if I could tell you the name, I would. But the pizza place in Florence, Italy, that is the pizza that I would buy. And I would probably buy a place closer to it and then have it a few times a week.
Would you like to elaborate on all of the things that you do on the Blattertainment Network?
Well, the Blattertainment Network is a nice way to sort of condense the Blackcast Entertainment Group, LLC, that has been going on for a while. The Blackcast podcast started in 2013, so we've been doing it for more than 8 years. We're at 424 episodes as of later this week. We'll be doing one live, and so that's a lot. You know, I mean, it's not Mark Maron, but we usually averaged about one a week. Every once in a while, we'd do less, we'd do more. And that grew out of producing Dennis Miller's radio show. And the cast of characters that are the most regular on it are people that I met through producing that show. It just seemed like a fun thing to do, you know, to kind of hang around afterwards. Yeah, that was how they sold the show. We did it live for most of the run of the show. We did it from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, but they sold it as more of an entertainment show, so you could play it later in the day. So in terms of live, we had a great clearance in Chicago. We'd get a lot of live calls from Chicago, and then some other cities later in the day. But yeah, so I worked on that show the entire time it was on. I produced it for almost the whole time, and I was the sidekick.
That's why it was so great.
Well, that's what I say. I was the sidekick / co-host for the last almost 5 years, and it was a lot of fun. We did it for Westwood One, and I think at the peak we were on about 305 stations, and when it launched, it was on 50 stations. So it definitely grew.
Oh, yeah.
But just radio changed a lot. That company changed a few times while we were there, and a lot of times the economics behind the scenes are why things go away anywhere in entertainment. And just working with the guys, we would have so much fun, and just kind of talking after the show. And I would listen to, they would do on Sirius XM, or just then it was just Sirius. They had on the Howard Stern channels, they had what they called the after show, which I think they still do. The wrap up show is actually what it's called. And it would just be people talking about doing that show. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I can do a show, but I can definitely do a show where I talk about a show. And that premise that this was the show where we would talk about the Dennis Miller Show after we were done lasted about one episode, and then we just kind of talked about whatever we wanted to. It would come up sometimes, oh, we had this really cool guest today, this thing happened, this is funny. And people who listened to it, it was put live, not live, it was the podcast episodes were put on the Dennis Miller radio site. So that's really how most people found it the first few years, really. And the first 100, I think it's the first 119 episodes, that's really how people found it. It was available the way podcasts were, but that's really how it started. And then when the show ended, we were able to keep in touch, and through using other radio studios, we were able to still do the show. We'd occasionally record it at people's houses. And, so we were able to keep in touch as friends. We were able to keep doing the show. And I'm probably closer to those guys because we do a podcast together, and we have for so long, because I haven't worked with them in really about 6 years now. So, the fact that we still do the podcast this much later, but I try to not impose on their time. I try to not make them do it every week. So that's why I'll do a lot of the interviews like you talked about, some of the musician interviews, authors, comic book creators, just other friends. I'll try to mix it up so that I don't, I'm not asking them every week to give me 2 hours of their time. I try to keep it to an hour or two a month.
So to catch me up now, you do the podcast with the people you met doing the Dennis Miller Show, and you also do interviews with famous people of industry. And, if people check out the Bladtcast, they can expect to see hangouts with people who are familiar with producing content, but also with the interviews with famous people, so you can get a real actual feel for Christian's ability to interview and see what my goal is.
Well, I learned a lot about interviewing, and it's weird to talk about myself in this way, but what I learned, I did learn a lot from working with Dennis Miller, because I would prepare him with notes on guests. I would write sample questions. Sometimes he'd use them, a lot of times he wouldn't. When you could tell when an interview wasn't going well, when he just started reading my questions in order and then the interview was over. He just wasn't that interested. But he made the point that he'll talk to anybody. And, I've always said that everybody's interesting if you ask them the right questions. And I learned that from Dennis. And then sort of really the real revolution, I think, in interviewing is the industry of podcasting, of course, because people, I'll talk to somebody for 2 hours straight. In radio, you usually, unless you pre-taped it, even if you had them for a whole hour, you could talk to them for 8 minutes, take a commercial break of about 4 minutes, come back, maybe do 8 more minutes, and then another break, maybe get 6 minutes in, and you do I think it was 35 minutes out of an hour, or maybe it was 39. It's been a while, sorry. Oh, it's definitely 39, because it was 2 half hours of 18 and a half. So It's like 39 and change. So that's how much time you get. So, for me, the interviews that I started hearing that I would like would be the long form interviews that Howard Stern would do on Sirius. And, a lot of people do interviews the same way, but those are the ones that I would hear. And he would talk to people that I didn't really think I was that interested in, like Gwyneth Paltrow. Don't think I'd want to listen to an interview with her for an hour, but then I listened to it. I'm like, oh, this is actually very interesting. There's things about her that are interesting for sure. So I don't know. And I think that the thing to learn really from Dennis is, for the most part, you should let people talk and think about what it is you want to say. But unless it's a joke that's so good and you're going to lose it in the minute if you don't trample them to get it out, it can usually wait and actually listen, actually ask good questions. And that's why, one of the interviews you mentioned was from a little bit less, it wasn't even a month ago, when I talked to Don McLean. He said a couple of times that he thought that my questions were really good. I mean, this is a guy who's been in the industry for more than 50 years. Who knows how many interviews he's done. And he thought that my questions were interesting. And I'm like, that's going to make me feel good, And I think that it feels good to know that people are interested in it. And I've had people who listen to my show be like, I don't usually listen to this kind of music, for the kind of musician that maybe I was interviewing, but they found this person really interesting. So I don't know. I think that's really the thing to do. And, the biggest thing about doing interviews is you just kind of have to practice. So when we first started doing the Blackcast, the way that I would interview people is we would have regular listeners of the radio show. I would just have them as guests, and I would put on the message boards like, hey, this person who calls in, we're going to talk to them for 20 minutes. So do you want to hear that? So it's just practicing talking to anybody, and just kind of getting down, figuring it out. You definitely want to have something of a game plan. Look, Larry King just passed away. He was the master of like not really preparing. And he's just like, I'm not going to read the book. I'm going to ask you, I'll just talk to you about it on the air. And most people, I don't think, can pull that off as well as Larry did. So I think it's good to prepare, but I think the thing that I definitely learned is to not overwrite my questions and not think like I have to get all these words in, and just realize like, oh, this conversation has gone a different way than I thought it would. Let's really focus on this thing. And it's not going to be the end of the world if I don't get to the stuff that I thought I wanted to talk about.
Okay, yeah. Anybody can be interesting if you ask the right questions, but take time to practice talking to people.
Yeah, except for me. I am probably not that interesting. There are not that many questions that can be asked that will elicit a good story. I try anyway, and I mostly just fake it.
No, that's the excuse of the person with a lot of secrets. Okay, so we talked about your interviews and your hangouts and the radio show. Let's see. We talked about the pizza. This is where I should take notes about being prepared. Is there anything that you have coming up that you want to promote?
Well, that's always good because, look, a lot of interviews get to happen because somebody has something to promote. The best interviews, though, are usually not those ones, because a lot of times, like if somebody's written a book about themselves, that's usually going to be a good interview. If somebody has a new movie or a new album or a new series, if those things don't sound interesting to you, it's probably not going to be that good. And especially if, like, say you listen to somebody's album and you're like, this is garbage, So promo interviews can be good, but usually aren't. And it depends on the person. If Robert Downey Jr. is promoting a new Avengers movie, that's going to be a good conversation, but if somebody has, a TV movie on the Hallmark Channel that they didn't even remember they did, it may not be a good conversation. So for me, I just like to talk to friends. I like to, and when I'm lucky that I get, pitched some musicians. Some of them I'm very familiar with. Some of them are newer and more up and coming. But the fact that anybody is willing to talk to me is always, one, a little bit of a surprise. And sometimes it was simple like, oh, this person got to talk to Dennis Miller. Alan Zweibel is a good example because I was dealing with him. I was like, I'd love to talk to you for my show. And he's like, great. So I did a show with him last year for the network that I was hosting a lot of shows for, AfterBuzz TV, and we'll actually going to repurpose that interview at some point in the next month. And we had a great conversation with him because I want to actually talk to him again. But I think most people who listen to my show didn't hear that first interview. So I want to get that out there.
Yeah, I didn't know
I
that.
just, I just like to talk about what I'm interested in. But if somebody is really interested in something else, I'll certainly listen to it and want to hear about it.
Well, like
And
Alan, I remember Alan being a funny guy, and that's why, I mean, that's what I'm trying to do with my joke portion, is get better at writing jokes. And there's a joke of his that I remember it's just right on the edge. It seems safe for Leno, and it's not something you would want to tell just anybody, but it was the stamp joke. And I mean, it's one of those jokes that it's just an immediate.
That stamp joke is from the first Saturday Night Live, the first Weekend Update.
And
the U.S. Postal Service has announced a stamp commemorating prostitution. The stamp costs a nickel, but if you want to lick it, it's a quarter. And that's a perfect joke. It's got the setup and boom, right there. That's a perfect joke. I think Alan wrote that joke. I'm pretty sure he said he did. And that's the kind of joke I love because it's so perfect. And it's just a setup. And yes, it's especially for 1975, it's a little racy, you know, but it's got all the elements of everything you want, you know. And I think that, you know, I used to, when I was an intern at Saturday Night Live, I was lucky enough that I got to submit jokes for the Weekend Update segment.
So you got to
learn something from great.
You got to intern at Saturday Night Live. So like, you're going to work and you open up the door. Do you clock in with a punch card, or like, did they, you know, they just kind of figure you're there, or, you know, based on what you do, or?
Well,
like what was
I got to intern at Saturday Night Live because the semester before I interned at Late Night with Conan O'Brien, and I let one of the segment producers there know that I wanted to intern at Saturday Night Live, and he had worked there. He just walked upstairs with me and he said, "This is Christian. He wants to intern for you next semester." And he introduced me to a nice woman named Karen Nathanson, whose husband was Jeff Zucker, who basically ran the network. So it worked out pretty well. Currently runs CNN, Jeff Zucker does.
Oh, okay.
And and it was just, I had gotten the advice really early on that, yes, going to college would be important in terms of getting some practical skills and some know-how, but really that your internships were going to be the most important thing that you could do to try and work in the industry. And those, you know, I was lucky that I lived outside of New York and I could focus on those, you know, and an alumni from my school handled internships at Conan. So that certainly helped me get in there. And by being there and being able to intern 5 days a week, I had a pretty good gig. I worked with all the musicians. I worked with the house band, the Max Weinberg 7, and then guest musicians. Yeah. And
because I used to watch I used to stay up late, and you know, I turned the knob on the TV, and I would watch the Conan show, and it was like where they would have the staring competitions, and they'd always introduce the Max Weinberg 7. So you actually used to work with them.
Yeah, in the fall of 1997, and there were some good bands, and some that weren't so good, but you know, some that I wasn't a fan of, but it was kind of cool to get to see them up close. You know, I got to do some really cool things, and being at SNL was, you know, it wasn't the dream come true, but being in those offices and walking around in that studio was the dream come true, because I had certainly gotten it in my head that what I wanted to do was work there in some capacity. I've talked about this before. When I was like in middle school, I think early high school, that's when I got in my head what I wanted to do was I wanted to be Dennis Miller. And so that's why I say you should always be sort of flexible with what your aspirations are, what your goals are, because I could certainly not be him, but I found myself in a position where I could write jokes for him, where I could produce a radio show for him, where I could co-host a podcast with him.
Well,
and
in many ways,
I think that
you were
understanding sort of what the reality of the situation is very important. So yeah, I got a lot out of being, you know, just in 30 Rock at NBC and being around these people. I mean,
well, in many
yeah, being
ways,
around.
you contributing like that, it you were, I mean, not the human being Dennis Miller, but you were the Q rating Dennis Miller. You were you were a portion of the person. You became a portion of you made your dream come true.
Sure.
It might not have,
I
you know,
contributed. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, when I was an intern at SNL, Colin Quinn had just, like, the first episode I was there for, Colin Quinn took over doing Weekend Update for Norm
Okay.
Macdonald. And Colin could not have been nicer and more encouraging. They put your jokes together. They'll put them on one page with your name at the top. And I have the name that you sort of referenced earlier, Bladt. So Blatt just stares at the top of the page. So Colin would see me in the interview. He got, not the interview. Colin would see me in the elevator. He got to know, you know, the face, the name. And he's like, Christian Bladt. He's like, this is what we need jokes about. And he would encourage me, like, these are the things that we need jokes for. So he was very encouraging. And I would turn in a lot of jokes every week. A great guy named Jack Helmuth, who worked with one of the head writers there at that time, and he's gone on to have a tremendous career in his own right. He gave me advice early on. It's like, every week I turn in 50 jokes, and the key is that none of them are funny. But so I would just turn in as many as I could, and I would spend a lot of time on them. And I did get one joke on the air. It wasn't when I was an intern anymore. I got one joke on in 2000, and I remember that it was an episode that Ben Affleck was hosting in early 2000, February 2000. So 21 years ago, I got a joke on SNL, and I continued to write them for years after that. Even more recently, I started doing it again. But yeah, and you know, the nice thing about working with Dennis Miller was I would write a joke, and if you liked it, it would be on TV that night. And you know, you just sort of write enough, you know, and the key is really having people who are willing to help you out. You know, at the Dennis Miller show, one of the writers, this guy named Jim Hanna, was very encouraging of the fact that he knew I wanted to be a writer. So he would say, you know, just give me like 5 jokes, you know, each day, and then he'll submit them with all the jokes for Dennis. And then he liked the jokes enough that he just said, you can just start submitting them yourself, and they would go into the packet together with all the real writers. And you know, I would probably do like 20 to 40 depending on the day. And I mean, I would get a few jokes on every week for sure. You know, there weren't that many writers, so I guess the odds were in my favor.
Well, like writing jokes for my joke portion of the program, I tend to write very neutral stuff. It's typically popsicle stick stuff that makes you groan. It's supposed to be really simple, safe humor.
Sure.
It's very, very neutral. The Gem channel is a love channel. But I have thought about more pop culture-y jokes, or more, you know, topical and news jokes. And I do throw one of those in every now and then. And I noticed that on your channel, you do a political related review, which is, you know, it's kind of a humorous way to take in the news, not directly from a news source, but just to kind of hear what someone's take is on that. And you write some jokes at the beginning. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do that. The show you're talking about is called Biden Time. For a while, it was called The Trump Report, but you know, new administration, new title for the show. And the joke portion that we do at the top of the show, I do with a very funny LA-based comedian named Tamara Brown, and she writes a lot of the jokes. There are weeks where she writes every single joke, even the ones that I tell, and there are times where she has a joke that's so funny that I'm like, I can't read it. You have to read that one because it's too funny. And I learned that from Dennis Miller. Every once in a while, I would give him a joke that he's just like, this is too funny. Like, I can't take credit for this. So I would read those on the air sometimes. And so, yeah, I think that's a sort of a fun way to do. I mean, it is sort of the thing I always wanted to do, was like a Weekend Update style show. But I think that show started on AfterBuzz TV as really more of like a round table, but we started slipping in the jokes at the beginning because it was supposed to be a kind of a lighthearted show.
I look
I
forward
feel
to
like that
that.
sets the tone. I feel like that sets the tone, you know?
Yeah, it's a good introduction.
Yeah.
I look. I mean, you could even clip that out and make a big, timeline clip thing or something.
I have thought of that, and that's as far as it's gotten. I think the problem is that I'm largely a one man operation, and I'm a terrible employee. Just my motivation could certainly be better. My dedication to the company needs improvement. I can make all the excuses I want about the fact that I've got 2 small kids, but let's be honest, that's an area of my life that also could use more improvement as well. So,
Well, running my own small business, I think I've found something, and it kind of goes back to what the 2 non-doctors, which they do a podcast, and I've been featuring stuff on my channel, and they reviewed the salsa that I make and all that kind of stuff. And they mentioned that when you have a request or a deadline, it's a lot easier to make something, call it good enough, and get it out the door. But when you're doing something for yourself, the goal is perfection. And we can never really get there because the goal keeps moving. And it had me thinking about my own small business. I've been putting off trying to get a new set of labels. I've just got other things that get in the way, and then I'm tired and I can't focus enough. But I reached a deadline. My Amazon is out of stock. I have to replenish my Amazon stock. I keep dropping that link. I got to replenish it. I got to make more. Am I going to make more the old way, or am I going to get the new labels? And so I've been hot-footing on the phone and actually, getting it done. And I think that kind of goes to what the 2 non-doctors were saying about having a deadline. And so it's like with the joke clip portion, what is the goal, and how much time would it take, and would it really pay off? I mean, so I mean, I would find it worthwhile, but
well, that's the real question. Yeah.
Since it's a
No.
question,
And yeah, there's certainly value to that. And look, there's a couple things you're talking about. As any kind of creator, writer, performer, I usually don't lump myself into this, but it is in relation to what I do. We usually are our own worst enemy. And going back to SNL, because of not just the fact that I interned there, but it was a huge part of the formative part of my life was watching that show, and my approach to comedy. And literally my approach to joke writing came from the Weekend Update feature. That's how I understand how to write jokes. And I would say that they always would say that the show never goes on because it's ready. The show goes on because it's Friday. Friday. That would make no sense. Because it's Saturday at 11:30. And it's a live show, so it has to go. So you're not ready, and I think sometimes that helps. And look, that show is very erratic. You watch it on any given week, you're like, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. And some weeks you see it, and you're like, you know what, that was really funny. I'd say on an average week, it's about half good. About half of the sketches, you're like, yeah, that's pretty funny. That's an average week. You'll have like an era. Like the late 80s, when I really was dedicated to watching that show. Like the 1988, 1989 seasons are, amongst some of the funniest things I've ever seen, just consistently. And then going back and watching the classic era of that show, like the 1978 season, it's like you'll watch the full 90 minutes and you're like, every part of this is amazing, So, it's the fact that they don't spend more time and they don't have to go at it probably gives some of the spontaneous feel to it, but you just have to realize that the quality is going to be very inconsistent. Somebody made the point that SNL is a mediocre restaurant in a great neighborhood, back when we used to be able to go to restaurants. And the fact that it's in that spot. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't have to be that good because everybody kind of goes and you're like, oh, I'm going to see this thing. And especially now when you want to talk about stuff get clipped out, you don't actually have to watch that show. You know, you can just Sunday morning, you can kind of look and like, oh, what have people tweeted out from SNL the night before? Oh my God, Robert De Niro was on, and you know, he couldn't read his lines off the cue cards. Sorry about that. You lost me there for a second.
Oh,
But I heard you
yeah.
talking about Jack Handy.
Mhm.
And Deep Thoughts was a bit that he
Mm.
used to do, sort of. You know, I think that was like 1990s when that started. Jack Handy, you know, it was such a great. It's like drive-by comedy. It's so short, so to the point, and it like really like just punches you in the gut by the time it's over. It's just more, and you know, when it comes to actual joke writing, what Jack said is sort of half true. Jack
Oh,
what he said is like writing is a good idea. You about 40 of them, but you could live with them for a little while. Maybe if you're lucky, you can share them with and be like, oh, what do you think of these? You know, here are my 5 favorites. Here are my 10 favorites. And then from that list, maybe you have 3 you actually tweet out. You know, it's you don't be afraid to put the work in of actually just writing a ton of jokes. And look, if you have one that you love and you think is really funny and nobody laughs at, don't worry about that. It's just Twitter. You know, I put stuff out all the time, and you know.
oh, you're speaking my language. I mean, every
These
week,
Twitter followers over jokes that I think are pretty funny. You know,
you're speaking my language because I write jokes every week, and some of them are so droll, and I write them down anyway. They're going on the show. I need the content. Last week I read through 30 jokes. There was probably 4 that were laugh worthy, and I mean, like, huh, laugh. But you know, that's the thing, is that doing that, I have over 1,000 jokes of some sort that I've written down, and it just goes right back to your advice of just getting a lot of jokes. I find that to be very, very true and validating. I
yeah.
appreciate hearing that.
And then I think that sometimes there will be jokes where I'm just like, I don't know what is this guy's background, because you had a joke that you sent me. I'm looking back now because I remember you send these to me on Twitter all the time. Why did the dude put MTV in it? Because he wanted Max Headroom. And I'm like, who remembers Max Headroom? I mean, I do. He used to be on Coke cans. He was on Coke commercials. The actor who played him, Matt Furr, is actually a great actor. I believe he's passed away since. There was a Max Headroom TV show in, like, I don't know, 1987, I'm guessing. And it's just like, it's, you know, that's the stuff that why I think Dennis Miller liked me so much, is because I would hang on to these little things. And and I'll know stuff from, I'm born in 1976, but I know stuff from much earlier than that, just because the stuff I saw in reruns. So if I could give him a good, like, Uncle Charlie joke from My Three Sons, it would probably knock him over, because he wouldn't be expecting it from me. And there was a lovely young woman on the Dennis Miller Option podcast with us named Lindsay, who, she's
on
much
your
younger than even I am.
She's on your Bladcast too, right?
Sometimes, yeah. If I'm lucky, Lindsay comes on the show, and we'll have her on again soon. Actually, she just laughs because stuff sounds funny. Sometimes she gets it, sometimes she doesn't, but she just. So it was a nice mix, actually, adding a.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed listening.
Person. I think
with the third person, and
having me laugh stuff is one thing. A night, yeah, when woman's voice laughing, we're because of the the one, yeah. And I think just putting it out there is the way to go. And honestly, even if you tweeted all 30 of those jokes, I don't think you're going to see, like, oh my God, the reason why I'll lose followers because of jokes is because they don't, they thought that they maybe they didn't agree with the politics behind it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I will definitely write jokes that I think are funny. And, I mean, look, there's no shortage of things that are funny about Ted Cruz thinking that he could, unnoticed, sneak out of Texas during the the power outage, snow,
public office, and even worse, if
not just the century of the millennia, and go to
people
Cancun
need you to
Yeah, if people need you to respond, you gotta stay there and be ready to delegate and like see the shit on the ground.
You, you, you either know better than to do it, or you sorry that I can't bring the whole state with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, did you bring enough Cancun for everyone?
But I'm going to go somewhere warm. That's not, but that's not who he is, you know? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is a guy who went out of his way to really accommodate our former president, who is someone who literally said his wife was ugly and insinuated that his father was involved in the JFK assassination. You would think that that would be enough where you're like, no, I don't care what this does for my political career. I am not going to endorse this guy. And yet, that's who he is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's, there's people who are politicians through and through. And look, everybody stay home, don't go out to eat. Oh, except for me and all my friends, my lobbyist friends, we're going to go to literally the most expensive restaurant in the United States, but you guys stay home and don't have Thanksgiving. But so to me, there's all of it, and it just depends on who strikes your fancy. And if Chuck Schumer was the one who was leaving a state in the middle of a deep freeze and got caught going to Cancun, everything about it is still funny. It's just, it helps when it's somebody that most, and a guy who was saying that any other people, criticized the way that electricity was generated. No, you just have to, and it's probably not worth it, but if it's really funny to you, you should put it out there because somebody will appreciate it.
No, I laughed at both the meme of Ted Cruz on the beach with Chris Christie.
That was great.
And the memes of Nancy Pelosi having chocolate ice cream in her freezer. It's politics, and it really is. It's kind of exposing of what they really think, because that's what you hear a lot of is politicians will say one thing, but then to see another thing, it's like, oh, yep, I knew it.
Yeah.
And the real problem with that I find is something to do with like the healthcare, the retirement funds, the things that are like like expensive, like I'm closing the fridge really fast to save energy, and meanwhile the courthouse has the front doors open on a freezing day.
Going to say before is I think a lot of people are really just full of shit, and I think that you have people who are like, look, you have to be able to laugh at the Ted Cruz thing. You have to be able to laugh at Nancy Pelosi, getting her hair cut when no one's allowed to get a haircut in the entire Bay Area where she's. What I thought was kind of a dumb joke. The day that the Mars rover landed was the day after this Ted Cruz thing broke. So I wrote that I thought that the most surprising thing from the Mars rover footage was when it looked around and realized that it didn't want to be on Mars. So it took its family to Cancun for the weekend. Some people thought that was funny, and other people immediately are like, oh, but people that I really like, by the way, wrote back and were like, oh, but what about when the Mars rover sent all the people with COVID into nursing homes? I'm like, that's true too. That definitely happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you give me your take on that. That's funny. I'm gonna laugh at it, but I'm like, that's not what I'm making a joke about.
That's
it's
not
like
bit
this can
surfing.
be fun. Two things can be funny at the same time. Two things can be true at the same time. And it's like you can't make fun of this person because this person is also bad. And it's like, no, everybody, and it's very difficult. It's a very hard time to be trying to figure out what's funny for people. And doing a show with Dennis Miller has been around for 35 years more, really.
I think Dennis needs
Dennis needs another special. He needs to come out with something called
special, and not just because I warmed up the crowd. The two shows, the last two specials that he did. The last one was
Really?
in Knoxville, Tennessee. Now
That's
I
got to be
did
cool.
I did warm up, which is like for TV and getting people to know when to laugh and what to point at and cheer and all that stuff. What I didn't do is I
Wow.
didn't open for him because I'm not a comedian in terms of a performer. I didn't have bits. I had a couple ideas of stuff that I thought was kind of funny to talk about, but I was mostly there to kind of make them chuckle and be like, hey, all right, and just make sure you laugh and do all this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's fun, and I would love for him to do another special. I think if he does one more, he ties George Carlin at either 10 or 11 specials. So I hope he does one more, but I don't think he feels like the politics of the world right now or the time that he wants to do it. But I'm not speaking for him. It's just my impression from things that he's said publicly before.
Yeah,
And
I understand.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be a time where he wants to do another special, but and I hope it happens, not just because look, if I don't get to warm up the crowd, I'll buy a ticket to it. I'd sit there in the audience because still one of the funniest people that I've ever seen perform. Somebody that understands how to deal with a crowd in terms of, and I'm not even talking about hecklers. It's just this crowd is a little different than a crowd in Las Vegas. Let me focus on this. Let me hit this joke a little harder. Let me, it's just understanding where it is. And, in the TV show that I worked on with him was when I first got to know him, which aired the rehearsal beforehand and the teleprompter, and he'd look at it after change one. And then when we had it in front of the studio audience, like maybe anybody else who can just change one word, and that's what makes a joke funny. And so I hope that we get a lot more out of him.
Yeah, I hope that it's more sooner than later. Because I've got his specials in my car and I listen to them every once in a while.
Do you have his album? It's called the Off-White album. It's I have it on cassette because I'm really old. I'm sure it's still out there, but it's technically his first special. It's not the same performance, but I think it's a lot of the same jokes. But I mean that sure of jokes, but specifically, I think the amount of time I was to chair and feel like I was able to write jokes for him was because I knew how he, I knew how to structure a joke. I knew what the setup was, and I knew sort of the case, the style for to kind of resolve it. So I recommend that to everybody. There are some jokes on this. It's from his first special. The still to friends of mine.
I can't tell if I'm cutting out or if you're cutting out. I keep losing. This is a great interview. We're gonna have to have another interview just so that I get more these great comments, because I've got tons of questions, and the fact that we're lagging so much.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good thing about the fact that you're not doing it live. I guess you could do that little white flash to kind of pick up between edit points and make it flow together. That's one of the main reasons I still do my show as an audio show. Well, thank you. But one of the reasons I definitely will always do my show, the Blackcast, as an audio show is because you can fix stuff like that. When you do stuff live, I mean, we're recording it, so there's a lot we can do with it. But when I'm doing stuff live and there's tech problems and delays, you can kind of play it up in the moment. It'll be funny. But somebody listening to it later, just hearing the audio, it's probably not as fun. But yeah,
I've been dealing with my Sunday show for a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, and I've enjoyed getting the chance to talk to you, but I actually want to ask you about something. You referenced the fact that you have a salsa, and I've been trading messages with you for a while, but I don't know anything about this. So tell me about your salsa.
Okay, so that kind of and we're gonna you gotta agree to another interview because I got so many questions.
That's fine with me.
One of the things we got to
I'll
talk
see you
about.
tomorrow.
one of the things we got to talk about is gemstones because we're on the Gemstone channel. So, have you ever had any questions or taken interest in gemstones? Do you have any gems or rock collections, or has it just been a mystery your whole life?
Saved all of my mineral spending for one purchase in my life ever, and it was to buy an engagement ring for my now wife. And that's the only stone that I've ever purchased. But look, I understand the value. I understand that gemstones can be righteous. Thank you. But no, I don't have any stones apart from the diamond that's upstairs in my house. So no.
Okay, so just to kind of bring you up to speed, I found out that the gems are fairly cheap. Like this big piece of lemon quartz, I got this for $3.50. And I can get like 3 of these pieces of rose quartz. They're rough, and then I cut them down myself. And I get them. I'll spend $30 or $40 on a bunch of gems, and then I grind them down. And how does that relate to the salsa? I'm getting to that. So I grind down the gems, and without getting into the backstory on the plant food, I save all the stuff, the powder I grind off the gems, and I mix it into a plant food that I've had tested and approved by the Department of Agriculture, and it's called 22 Gemstones Plant Food. And by accident, I found that my gemstone powder that I grind off of them boosts the yield and the quality, the health and quality of the plants, as well as their sugar content. Just engineered what I was doing, wasn't putting any dangerous ones on the plants because there are some dangerous minerals that you don't want to put on your plants, but everything is within the recommended micro and macronutrients of what plants need to be more plantly. And so that's how it kind of comes to the salsa. So in order to test and promote the plant food, I put in a salsa garden. I grew onions, garlic, different types of peppers, tomatoes, and raspberries, and I combined them all the gem grown vegetables into a salsa. And I sent it to a couple of people. They like it, so I sent it to a couple more people, and they reviewed it, and people are just giving me great comments about it. So I was on the Two Non-Doctors show, and I was showing them the gems, and then I was showing them the salsa, and the one gal says, salsa. And so I was going to send them both a care package with gems, and I put a jar of salsa in both of them. And it's kind of funny to watch because the one gal's like, I hate you so much. And it's because I sent them to their P.O. box, which is in New York, and then the gal in New York was going to send the gal in England her package, but apparently customs won't allow home-baked goods through the border. And so the gal who wants the salsa isn't actually going to get her salsa. But that's kind of bringing you up to speed.
If there was ever a reason to get on a plane during a global pandemic, it would be to be able to get some of Jacob Downing's salsa. And that is an endorsement from me, who's never had it. But I think that's the approach you should take.
I'll send you a jar. I don't know that I have any of the good batches left because I want to say that I used early girl tomatoes more prominently in one of the batches, and it didn't the flavor's not really there. But this summer I can guarantee.
Well, just send me terrible ones, thanks.
All right. Hey, send me a shipping address. I'll send you one of the decent jars, and then this summer I'll send you one of the better jars. And I have to ask, do you like it? Do you like heat in your salsa? Because it's a mild salsa, but I've been developing a slightly hotter version, and this year I'm gonna try and actually go for a hot. Uh-oh, we lost him. Oh no. We were too excited about salsa. And we lost him. There he is. He's back. The network got excited about salsa. He's back.
Exactly. I had to go run up and tell my wife, we're getting salsa. It's coming to the house. I prefer mild because I'm not very. I'll enjoy it with some heat. I'll enjoy it mild. So it depends on who you want to impress, my wife or I. She's much more famous than I am, so you might want to impress her.
Well, I'll send you the mild, and then this summer I'll send you a mild and a hot. And,
I like it.
yeah.
Excellent.
We'll have to send you a couple gemstones in with it. What color do you guys want? You and your lady of the
my lady of the night.
No, I don't know where I was going with that. The lady of your life.
Well, if you have an orange one, I can give it to my daughter, but my wife likes both teal and magenta, and I'll take a nice green, and probably so would my son. So any of those colors in there would probably be great.
You got it. Okay, and then you say green, so I actually have a lot of greens. So give me an example of some green. I mean, I got yellow greens, Jolly Rancher. I got dark foresty greens. I got bluish greens. I got.
Let's go dark forest green.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because I mean, like, just to give you an example, I mean, I've got all of these that are generally green in comparison to other colors. They're not really showing up that well. But then I've got different versions. That's not a good example, but I've got greenier greens and yellowier greens and bluier greens within the same type of gem, if I could get them out of the box.
Right.
And so I'll shoot for different. Yeah, there you go. Different greens.
Perfect.
Same stone. So yeah, all right. Shoot me a shipping address.
I look forward to it.
Give me a couple of weeks. I'll get that in the mail.
Well, their minerals are magic in their own way.
That's right. Yeah. So it was great talking to you. I'd like to set up another time that we can chat, and
you let me know how your audience responds to this one, and then we'll go from there, and then we'll find time. As long as you feel like they want more, I'd be happy to find time to talk to you again before too long.
Awesome. Great. Give me a week or two to get this on the show.
Yeah.
And then I'll get your package in the mail.
Sounds great. Well, thank you, Jacob. It was nice to get the chance to finally talk to you for real.
Likewise. See you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
So that was the interview. If you noticed, we had the short version at the beginning, and the longer version at the end was kind of cheesy. So during the short version, I cut the cheese, and I let it air out at the end of the show. Screwed up that joke too. I was gonna do that. I had it in my head to do that joke earlier. I was like, okay, we're gonna show you the short version where I cut the cheese, and I'm gonna air that out at the end of the show. Something along those lines. And that kind of goes back to what he said during the interview, is that the wording of the joke is it's important to try and get that down. The wording in the organization. 710 says it's rigid. It's when it starts buffering, it gets a little choppy, and then it starts to be very rigid. So anyway, that is this week's show. I hope that at least once a month, or at least every other month, we can try and give you an interview portion of the show. And maybe we can have a cut, like a short cut, and then the extended cut at the end. And I hope that you'll all have a great week. And I'll see you next week, and every week, at 9 p.m. Eastern.